Hello everyone, we are DMCTS, a co-curricular activity club that is in Daewon Foreign Language School, which is in Korea. Actually we used to post like dance or rap videos, but today we decided to do a new activity, and that's a research on what's so special about Hallyu. And first of all, we're going to talk about some questions that our friends from other countries asked. And secondly, we're going to talk about some specific issues that we researched on. So let's go.
Hi friends, I'm Owner of the Illusion and I'm TS. Today I will talk about difference about J-pop and K-pop. Because I'm hip-hop club and I couldn't performance because of Corona. So I will be present. The biggest difference between K-pop and J-pop is that K-pop is distributed only in some popular genres, and J-pop is distributed to a certain degree of uniformity in all genres regardless of trends. In the case of K-pop, ballads, hip-hop, and pop songs are consumed as popular and friendly music as the main product of the fashion-conscious young generation. Recently, the genre of truth came to mind, and because one of the K-pop genres. On the other hand, J-pop has a wide variety of meanings, so it's hard to point out a genre. If you make some profit in the music industry market in Japan, that's J-pop. Among them, the culture of dance singers called idols stand out from the two countries, Japan, like AKB48, create a large number of people as dance singers. Play song for about 4 to 5 minutes, and Korea plays song for about only 3 minutes. Of course, this story is characterized by standard groups. I hope this story answers your question. Well, done.
Hello, we're Daewon Foreign Language High School students from DMC, and I'm going to introduce some of the Q&As about Korean mass media, culture, K-pop, and etc. What's the most popular K-drama now? The hottest K-drama these days are Sweet Home and Uncanny Counter. Netflix's latest K-drama horror series has gotten off to a great start. After an impressive first season, plenty of subscribers are already looking ahead in hopes of a second season. Sweet Home is a Netflix original horror K-drama series based on the webtoon comic. Sweet Home is about a group of neighbors that must band together to save humanity from bloodthirsty monsters hell-bent on destruction. The K-drama has only been available to stream for 3 days, but it's already catapulted into Netflix's top 10 list. Uncanny Counter is also a webtoon-based drama that tells the story of demon hunters called Counters, who have come to the earth posing as employees of a noodle restaurant in order to capture evil spirits that have returned to earth in pursuit of eternal life. Both series are produced by Studio Dragon, who has also been responsible for other popular K-dramas such as My Holo Love, Love Alarm, Earth It All Chronicles, and Crash Landing on You. Why do Koreans care so much about honorifics? People tend to discriminate on the basis of their status, and for example, the general public, who has no money or does not have a high status, pulls out the number tag and waits for their turn or ATM when using the service of the bank. On the other hand, high-ranking and wealthy people enjoy the privilege of being a VIP at a bank. Of course, some will be honored for self-satisfaction, but some will be honored to enjoy the privileges of everyday life or to show off themselves. Honor is equivalent to invisible value. The invisible value is that others don't easily disappear, but you can make a momentary mistake and lose everything you've been trying to do. Therefore, people will be overly concerned about any effort to protect their honor. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Have a good evening.
Are there people who are willing to teach for ignorance Korean? Depending on the situation, there are people who try to teach Korean to foreigners. In the case of foreigners such as school and exchange students, my colleagues and teachers around me write in school for foreigners. If you ever get into a language program, you are gonna have to stand by. If you teach Korean little by little and give help there are, and when you give help, it's better to ask if you can help and not just help. And if a foreigners can't order in Korea at the store for the first time, one or two kind Koreans around may find out what they order at the store and teach them how to order it in Korea. Representatively, Korean language teachers in Korea teach Korean to students the most. Who is studying in Korea like? People who study in Korea are very diverse. Of course, people who study its development in Korea, software development, medical development, some people come to study and research it, especially in medical development, and others come to Korea for abroad to study the medical field, as Korean has shown high performance. In the case of schools, exchange students from abroad come to Korea to learn culture and language, and most of the people who study in Korea are in Korea. They are raised Koreans around me, sometimes study abroad, pre-fly when I was young and come back to Korea to study and on. Average, most of them just study at Korean schools from childhood to high school.
So the first question is, why is Korean so confusing? Like to form grammatically correct sentences is hard. I totally agree. Since we're in foreign language high school, we're also learning new languages since 2 years ago. And so for me, Chinese is very hard because grammar is really difficult. And I'm sure you know this too, but the best way to improve a language is to study the vocabulary and grammar. So I think if your purpose is to communicate message rather than take an exam, it would be better to learn more Korean words to use in various situations. As long as there's the meaning, people do understand. And as for Korean grammar, we also take it for a final university exam called 수능, so it is of course very difficult. But to give you a simple tip, how about using this template? Subject, object, and verb. So assuming you have some basic vocabulary, just put them in like 나 드라마 본다, which means I'm watching K-drama. And when you're complimenting another person or thing, which I think I first started to do when I learned Chinese, like 이거 좋다 or 너 예쁘다, it also works. And if you want to form sentences but find it confusing, feel free to comment below on this YouTube video and we will get back to you soon. The next question is, does Korean BBQ in Singapore or other countries, for example, taste less authentic? The answer is no, it actually tastes the same. Korean families also go to the K-BBQ restaurants a lot, and that means it actually tastes the same, and it's good. I think the only difference is that while in Singapore, many people go to the restaurant to have Korean BBQ, as known as K-BBQ, Koreans normally just have it at home. For example, this is how we do it. There are various cuts of meat at the K-BBQ restaurant, right? I think the most kind of meat that Koreans eat is probably 삼겹살, 목살, or 차돌박이. And as you can guess, these probably aren't the names you heard about, such as 불고기 or 갈비. Here's a tip of knowledge about Koreans. Koreans often prefer just meat rather than marinated meat as for when we have K-BBQ kind of meal, like when we use the grill to heat up the meat. Choices and preferences may differ from person to person, but when a child finally says he or she likes the original meat rather than the bulgogi kind of marinated ones, adults will say, oh, he finally knows the taste of meat. In Singapore, that many people prefer marinade to meat, so next time do try just chadeolbagi or samgyeopsal. Together with this kind of side dish on the bottom right corner of this page, it tastes amazing. Here's another tip. This doesn't exist as a side dish in other countries' KBBQ restaurants, but it is served a lot here, so how can you make it? In the restaurant side dish corner, there is one which is made with brown liquid, often with chili pepper, and a lot of onion, so take the liquid and put the onion on top. I hope it suits your taste. And one more tip, applying the first question, let's say you wanted to say, I want to eat meat. We use a kind of childish word, 고기, so just go, 나 고기 먹고 싶어.
Hello, we're TS, and today we'll be discussing the strategy for the continuous spread of Korean wave throughout the world. Here is our table of contents. I'm 2519 Kim Sungju, here to present my analysis of the Korean wave in the world market. The world market for the Korean wave of Hallyu is becoming increasingly diversified. In many areas, Korean culture is spreading into the international market. For the example, there are K-pop, webtoons, K-dramas, and animations. The market for the Hallyu is ever increasing, and places all over the world including China, Japan, Taiwan, and the United States are contributing to the surge of Hallyu. As the time people spend at home increased with the breakout of COVID-19, demand for easily consumable culture is increasing, which is something the Hallyu culture does very well.
Now I will start my presentation on the topic of statistical approach towards Korean wave, company case analysis based on statistical economic aspects. Nowadays, Korean wave takes a huge portion in globalized culture. As it can be seen in this graph, foreign people tend to think of K-pop in terms of Korean wave. Plus, according to this thesis, the value-added effect, the monetary effect of Korean wave was 11.6 trillion won, and about 174,000 people had benefited from Korean wave in 2018. These show that the interest towards Korean wave is increasing and has a positive effect on the Korean economy. And according to this chart, it's quite evident that BTS or maybe Big Hit Entertainment contributed to Korean wave becoming more famous. As it can be seen in this chart, Big Hit Entertainment has developed enough to enlist stocks, and of course, it has a big positive impact on Korean economy. Thus, it can be concluded that companies and industries related to Korean wave today have many positive effects on the economy.
I will introduce about comparison of Korean wave influenced and uninfluenced areas and vitalization strategies for uninfluenced areas. First of all, uninfluenced countries are mainly in Asia, countries such as China, Japan, Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, and more. As you can see in the graph, Korean culture is relatively unpopular in Europe and America. Then what can we do to vitalize uninfluenced areas? First, we have to develop and reinforce other content genres. Subsequently, we need a deep understanding of the target country's culture. Finally, we have to increase competitiveness through localization to compete with their own content.
I'm gonna talk about the prospect of the digital Korean wave. K-pop, K-drama, K-eating show, and K-beauty. The Korean wave is attracting attention in various forms around the world. How did the culture of a small country in Asia have such an influence? I found this answer in digital media innovation. In other words, the Korean wave is a new form of cultural flow and a transnational cultural influence created by the intersection of globalization and digital culture. Looking at the development of the Korean wave, which has achieved the world's 7th largest content market, there are digital cultural activities of global fandom in terms of consumption. Digital media innovation is fundamentally changing the landscape of global cultural exchanges as the basis for the growth of the Korean wave. The significance is that the Korean wave is a representative example of reverse distribution, which broke the framework of the unilateral spread of Western culture and gained global empathy. We hope that Korea will become the center of a new form of cultural exports by continuing this good and powerful digital Korean wave through institutional and technical support.
Our presentation is about what consequence did cultural appropriation in K-pop bring. Cultural appropriation is the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas of one people or society by members of another and typically more dominant people or society. Cultural appropriation in K-pop touches upon many different cultures, but most commonly happens in the form of South Asian and Black culture. It is a well-known and widely controversial term globally, but quite new to Korea as cultural appropriation controversies are often against more dominant countries. Thus, it is well-known and actively discussed topic worldwide, but not yet in Korea. The problem is that trying to adopt and use the culture as a garment or aesthetic while not understanding the significance of their culture is wrong. It is important to think twice before wearing garments and other objects of another culture. It is necessary to understand that these items can really mean something to the people of that culture. Like this, some people are harshly criticizing, but others can be quite lenient. So it's a very controversial topic. Some cases of K-pop cultural appropriation include narrator Jobin, who apologized about their song Curry 10 years back, which is accused of mocking Indian culture. The original singer apologized and said he had no purpose of mocking their culture. Secondly, Blackpink have landed in controversy after a Ganesh statue was found beside Lisa in How You Like That music video after Indian viewers pointed cultural misappropriation in their comeback music video. So what are the possible causes? We thought that, firstly, since K-pop is normally planned most on concept, in the process of taking special items to make the idol look unique, consideration on cultural appropriation is looked over, especially because of the fierce competition between companies. Secondly, Korean education system do not give students much opportunity to learn about how we should appreciate and treat other cultures. We are a monoracial country, and unless there's special cases like our school, most people do not meet people from other countries, other cultural background while growing up. So what are the possible solutions and what should K-pop industry strive for? These are our opinions. It is a controversial topic, and we truly believe this is not discussed in Korea yet. First of all, we believe that this issue, if gone by without proper contemplation, can block the way of K-pop globalization. Especially if this happens, it is most important to accept the feedback quickly and show apology and understanding. Secondly, we think it is really dependent on individuals' thoughts. But since K-pop's target audience and fans are not just Koreans, K-pop industry and in general, Koreans need to be more aware about cultural issues. At least, before using the cultural object at hand, more needs to be researched and more careful discussions have to be done with the culture's original country. To be honest, there aren't much opportunities for Koreans to learn about, it's so cold, appreciating cultural differences. At least, not as much as other multiracial countries such as Singapore. This is not anyone's fault because the reason behind it is that Korea is a monoracial country. However, we still think that if globalization is still going on and Korea is developing into a country fully influenced by globalization and living together with people from overseas, Koreans, not only K-pop related companies and idols, need to be better educated about respecting cultural differences. Opinions on cultural appropriation is diverse, but we dare say it is wrong to use other cultures' objects or things without contextual relation, especially in something as widely broadcasted as K-pop. Also, the massive influence of social media such as K-pop need to be considered as well because the fact that cultural appropriation is widely used in K-pop would give out a message that cultural appropriation is not wrong after all. We also think that on the other hand, there should be a line to which the criticizing of cultural appropriation should be used, and especially Korean media and news should stay away from extended application of the term without proper understanding. on top of that, we hope that other countries can also stay away from starting to criticize, but also have some understanding, some kind of understanding that we actually didn't have a dark intention inside. We should differentiate between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation, and there needs to be an atmosphere of understanding each other's culture and differences. In conclusion, more awareness needs to be raised locally about this topic, and K-pop, in order to achieve globalization, there should be more we should be more careful when using cultures, and Koreans in general should also try to pay careful attention when it comes to talking about foreign cultures. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Kim Jae-hyun from Daewon Foreign Language School. Among them, I belong to a club called TS. We recently researched a project on the Korean culture wave and received this question in the process. What's the difference between K-pop and J-pop? The questioner added, I've heard Japanese in the K-pop genre, and I'm confused because of this. The detailed description and details of this question are on the other video that we uploaded, so you can check it out in that video. So what we are dealing with in this video is the difference between K-pop and J-pop. Among them, let's look at examples, perceptions, and detailed genres. First of all, J-pop in Japan is an acronym. It stands for Japan Popular Music. It literally means that it is a famous Japan music. This Japan song also includes the meaning of all genres of music in Japan. The next, K-pop. Just like J-pop, its meaning is Korean popular music. It includes the meaning of a genre of music that is popular in Korea. The biggest characteristic of these two cultures is playing time of music. K-pop in Korea takes about 2 to 3 minutes for most of the music, and 4 minutes at most. J-pop, on the other hand, takes about 5 to 6 minutes to 8 minutes of music. The typical examples of Korea are BTS's Dynamite and Boy With Love, etc. And typical examples of Japan are songs like AKB48's Gimme 5 or Bingo. They also show the difference when they listen to music. K-pop has special sound effect, so most of the music feels grand. The way to feel the feeling is when you listen to K-pop. If you listen to it with a loud sound, you can hear a certain sounds at the end of the songs, like and that's just a reflection of the reverb effect. Also, J-pop has one octave higher than K-pop for all songs. To feel this, it's faster to sing it yourself. It can be very hard to sing a note that sounds way higher than my voice. And also, it's a little different when you narrow down the genre to just idols. The number of people and team name can be distinguished. It's because most K-pop girl groups from 4 to 12, while Japan has about 100 members. The reason this system is possible is because Japan has a system in which several teams in the same agency are grouped together and allowed to work in only one region. For an example, HKT48 is meaning of Hakata in Fukuoka team. So HKT48 is only working Fukuoka because of a sisterhood relationship. So if you're confused about the group's nation, then you should check about the team's name. To summarize the total, I can roughly pick 3. First, the name is different names. As I said before, K-pop is a Korean song and J-pop is a Japanese song. Second, playtime is different. K-pop is generally about 3 minutes long, but J-pop is generally about 5 minutes long. 3. The number of people in the group and the team name are different. Most K-pop girl groups have 4 to 12 members, but most J-pop groups have 100 members in a team. With these contents, we film the difference between K-pop and J-pop today. I hope you learned something through our video today.
Today we would like to tell you about the economic effects of Hallyu by exploring complementary points and directions through changes in imports and exports and market share analysis. The content of the presentation is leverage of K-drama, leverage of K-pop, economic changes caused by Hallyu, and the future direction of Hallyu. To begin with, Netflix entered in 2015 and is rolling out original productions. Other entertainment companies riding the South Korean pop culture wave include Hong Kong telecommunication giant PCCW Ltd. and Turner Broadcasting's OK subscription-based TV channel. In the Hallyu trend, the primary genre is drama. In the age of YouTube and Spotify, K-pop has become a global phenomenon that plays a remarkable role in its growing economy. K-pop artists experiment with a wide range of musical genres, including electronic, hip-hop, pop, rock, and R&B. K-pop music videos are known for their visual effects and elaborate storylines. The artists' live performances involve colorful costumes and perfectly synchronized choreography. Moreover, K-pop has become a global phenomenon that plays a remarkable role in its growing economy. BTS received the award for the top social artist at the Billboard Music Awards. They made first history as the first K-pop group to top the chart. The influence of BTS led to an increase in the number of international students in Korea and heightened interest in learning Korean. The skyrocketing K-pop movement manages to connect people through a shared love of music and cultural diversity through its reach. Many K-pop fans have become interested in exploring Korean culture further. In 2014, the music industry's content export increased compared to the previous year, and the average annual increase rate of K-pop was 41.7%. In addition, total content exports amounted to the US $5,273.32 million, with an annual average increase of 13.4% from 2010 to 2014. This picture shows top 10 global medical tourism destination by value. USA is $3,500 million, South Korea is $555 million, and Turkey is $600 million. The next picture shows global cosmetics industry breakdown in 2015. In 2006, Korea's cosmetic market amounted to 5,448 billion won, but in 2011, it rose 1.5 times to 8,410 billion won. The picture on the right shows status of fashion market by region. And you can see that the number of foreign tourists visiting Korea is increasing almost every year. The popularity of the Korean wave can be found in various areas of our lives, but movies like 부산행, 협상, Parasite have gained a great box office not only in Korea, but also in foreign countries and endured the year. Korean cosmetics and foods are also loved all over the world, and the number of foreigners learning Korean is increasing. Also, many tourists visit Korea every year to experience Korean culture. Finally, let's talk about challenges for the development of Hallyu. The most important issue for the development of the Korean wave is to strengthen the basics of the culture content industry above all. It is necessary to foster a representative culture content company of the Republic of Korea that can confront the huge entertainment companies in the United States and the power of the government from the gap of rapid growth of the Chinese cultural industry by breaking down the smallness of the industry. On the other hand, a symbiotic structure between large companies and SMEs must be built in parallel so that the domestic culture industry is not influenced by the influence of some large companies and small creative companies can create unique content. The most important issue for the development of the Korean wave is to strengthen the basics of the cultural content industry above all. Thank you for listening to our speech.
Thank you for watching and subscribe.